And just spend a little time.
Good morning. It's 9. It's after 9, so let's get started and Eduardo can catch up with us. I'm calling the meeting to order. So let's move on to roll call.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Jim Anderson.
Here.
Commissioner Roger Anderson.
Here.
Commissioner Joe Clark. Commissioner Justin Cummings. Chair Manu Koenig. Commissioner Eduardo Montesino. Vice Chair Rochelle Lather.
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Ed Banks.
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Kim DeSerpa. Alternate Commissioner John Hunt.
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Fred Keeley. Chair, we have quorum, and Commissioner Vice Chair Lather will chair today's meeting in the absence of Chair Koenig. Mr.
Yay,
Executive Officer?
gavel. So we'll move on to agenda item number 2. Do you have a report?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. 2 quick updates. One is, as this commission knows, we are conducting this meeting in a hybrid model. So members of the public have the option to join us either virtually or in person. For those joining us that would like to speak on any agenda item, they'll have up to 3 minutes to address the commission. Staff will inform them when they have 1 minute left and when their time is up. For those joining us via conference call, if you press *9, that will raise your hand. If you're on Zoom, if you press the reaction tab, you'll be able to raise your hand there. And for anybody in the audience, they can just go up to the podium. Madam Chair, the only other update I have is regarding LAFCO news. Oh, give me 1 second. Sorry about that. Is the retirement of Carolyn Emery from Orange LAFCO. She has been with that LAFCO for 25 years. Her last day was March 31st. And I just want to express my appreciation for her leadership. She was one of my mentors. And I've always told people in the LAFCO world is if you can survive Orange LAFCO, you can survive any LAFCO in the state. And the fact that she was there for 25 years and she has been the EO for almost half that time, that just is a testament of her leadership and her durability. So we hate to see her go, but it's a well-deserved retirement. Knowing her, she strategically had her last day in between her commission meetings. So she didn't want EOs to go to the commission meeting and kind of just share our thoughts. But I did want to take this opportunity to just let the commission know of her retirement and staff's appreciation for her dedicated service. The other update is CalAFCO will be hosting a staff workshop later this month, and your staff has been invited to be on 2 sessions. It's going to be the kickoff general session about protest hearings. Your analyst will be the moderator, and your EO will be one of the panelists speaking on this kind of boring topic, but we're going to try to make it as entertaining as possible. And then we also have a breakout session about how to have effective or create effective MSR service reviews. So that's something that I'm looking forward to. But Madam Chair, these are the 2 updates I wanted to provide to you. No commission actions required, but thanks for the opportunity to share that to the commission.
Yeah. I have a question. Is anybody online right now?
Yes, we do have at least one person.
Okay, I'll try to remember. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
So now we're on to the adoption of the minutes. So I guess there's a small staff presentation on this.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. After the distribution of the agenda packet, one of our commissioners did identify an error on page 7 of the draft minutes. So what you see on the screen is a proposed update to the minutes indicating that LAFCO is scheduled to give the commission at least 2 updates when it comes to legislation, but that doesn't limit us to give any other periodic updates when necessary. So we just wanted to clarify that we'll bring, if there's a bill that we need to bring to the commission's attention, that's not in these two scheduled dates, we will bring forth that information to the commission. So we want that to be reflected in the minutes. But Madam Chair, that concludes staff's presentation. Staff is recommending that the commission adopt the draft minutes with the proposed edit.
Okay, does anybody have any questions or edits to the minutes in addition to that?
I'll move motion to approve with the edits.
I'll second.
Okay, we have motion second. I'm supposed to state who it was. Okay. The Andersons, Jim and Roger. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, we'll move on. Oral communications. This is an opportunity for the public to provide comments on items that are not on today's agenda and pertain to LAFCO. Is there anyone that wants to speak online?
Madam Chair, there's no request at this time.
Okay, and there's no one here, so we'll move on to the next agenda item, the public hearings.
Perfect.
So Lockwood Lane, Grand Hill Road parcel annexation. There's a presentation for that.
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Just a quick presentation. Your staff received a request to annex a single parcel that's just above 1 acre in size last year. And for purposes of this presentation, I'm just going to give you the key findings. This annexation request was submitted by the landowner, so we do have 100% consent. The affected agency, in this case, San Lorenzo Valley Water District, has indicated that they're willing and capable of providing water service to this parcel. The plan is to develop a single family home on this parcel. And again, the water district has indicated that they support this annexation. This proposal is does require an amendment to the sphere boundary. As you can see on the map, it's immediately adjacent to the water district service area and their sphere boundary. So as part of this annexation, we also want to amend the sphere to be coterminous with this annexation. The parcel is within the county's urban services line. It is staff's understanding that the county really utilizes this urban services line to determine where development can occur. So as you can see in this parcel, it is within the urban services line. So the county has expressed support of this annexation as well. The Board of Supervisors did adopt a property tax exchange agreement last year. So again, we have support by the county, we have support by the water district, and the landowner does support this annexation as well. I do want to clarify that there is another development just south of this annexation known as the Haven Project that is proposing 160 plus units. That is completely separate from this annexation of the single parcel. This has no connections other than it had the same owner. That's where there's been some confusions. People thought that maybe this was an attempt to get connected to the water district and provide that to this Haven project. That is not the case. In the event that this Haven project does move forward, they would require a separate application for LAFCO to review. My understanding that there's a lot of issues from the county's perspective, from the water district's perspective. So that's something that if it does come forward, we will bring it up to the commission's attention, but they're two completely different development projects. So I just want to make that clarification. That being said, this annexation request is consistent with the commission's policies, with LAFCO law. So therefore, staff is recommending that the commission adopt the draft resolution approving the annexation of this single parcel into the San Lorenzo Valley Water District. And Madam Chair, that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. So there's no one in the room from the public. Is someone online interested in speaking on this subject?
There is no request at this time.
Okay, so we will move it to the commissioners. Do any commissioners have questions?
So maybe I misread it because I was trying to read this on my new iPad.
Sure.
That there was three proposed units on this piece of property.
So for this annexation request, it's just one single housing development.
But there's three proposed somewhere in there. I read about three.
If there's three, that would be a typo because there's only one
Okay.
single family home being developed in this single parcel.
Okay, and then the other is just this minor thing is I wanted to see where Lockwood Lane was and your little other map was right over all that area. So you could rearrange that in some other areas so that all the street designations and stuff
Yep, good point.
for people that are challenged, I guess, like.
No, that's, I apologize for that. We can modify the map to show the main roads that are involved with this annexation.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else?
Question. This is available for sewer or septic hookup?
So this annexation request is only for water services. So my understanding is that the developer is planning on installing a septic tank system for this single family home unit.
Thank you.
Roger?
Yeah, just one thing. I will vote for this motion, but I would like to make certain the minutes really clearly state what you said about the Haven project.
Good point. And we will definitely reflect that in the minutes.
So is there a motion or another question?
Question. So this extension or connection that's bound to get their water service closer to the Haven project? Since it's the same.
Yes, so
Request.
good question. So I'm going to revert back to this map here. So these 4 parcels that are in red hash mark, those are the parcels as part of this Haven project. So as you can see, 2 of them are already in the water district. So hypothetically, if the San Lorenzo Valley Water District wanted to provide services to this Haven project, there's connection nearby. However, there's other concerns. As you can see, all these 4 parcels are outside the county's urban services line. So that indicates that the county typically or historically has not supported development outside this boundary. Secondly, because of its 160 plus units, sewer is an issue. The closest one is the city of Scotts Valley, and that's pretty far from these 4 parcels. In addition to that is resident opposition of development in this area. So to answer your question, there are connections that are nearby to the Haven project, but based on my discussions with the water district, they have concerns about their capability of providing water to a large development as this Haven project is proposing to do.
Thank you. You answered my next question because I know we've made amendments to the Rolling Woods area and the connection to the city and abandoning their plant just past Treetop there. So I believe, if I'm correct, that capacity for both Scotts Valley and Santa Cruz isn't really a problem. It would be the water problem. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Roger.
Yeah, I'm curious whether the landowner has specified a building site within this parcel.
My understanding is the developer is still proposing the specifics to the county. I believe my understanding is the county does have an initial plan, but they've raised concerns about those plans. So that's the extent that staff knows about this proposed development.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll move recommended action.
I'll second.
Jim? Okay,
Motion by Commissioner Jim Anderson and second by Eduardo Montesino.
okay. You guys threw me in here, okay?
You're
I'm
doing
not
great. You're doing
prepared.
great.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, we move on with a unanimous vote.
Perfect.
So now we're at the point with the next item is the draft budget for fiscal year 2025. I request staff presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hopefully another quick presentation. So staff has presented the commission a draft budget for this upcoming fiscal year 25-26. And The staff report kind of goes into more details, but for today's presentation, I'm just going to give you the key findings. First is this proposed budget is only 3% more than our current budget. That is approximately $19,000 more, again, compared to our current budget of fiscal year 24-25. Going to our revenue source, our primary source of revenue is from our funding agencies. So under state law, the county pays a third, the cities pay a third, and the special districts pay a third. This represents approximately 63% of our total revenue. The rest is from our reserves and interest. But interest is like less than 1%. We don't rely on that. So it's really focused on our funding agencies and our reserves. Our salaries did go up by 5%, and that's approximately $20,000 more. For our services supplies, sorry, I got a little cough, so I'm going to be coughing throughout the presentation, so I apologize. Services and supplies did go down by approximately 1%, which is about $1,000. And again, this is LAFCO's staff's attempt to just maximize our resources and just be lean and mean. And finally, the funding agencies will see an increase in their apportionments for the first time in 3 years. We staff and this commission has been very conservative when it comes to our budgetary practices, and we've been doing everything we can to keep our budget as low as possible. As you can see, the LAFCO budget through the years, we're now where we were back in 2018. So that just shows you that this commission always looked for ways to reduce our expenses, but now we're at the point where we can't the increase in inflation and just the cost of operating the office has continued to increase. So we're now back to where we were in 2018. But the fact that it's been years before we actually reached that number just kind of shows that the commission's effort to keep costs as low as possible. So that being said, again, this is just a 3% increase. We did provide the draft budget and the proposed allocation breakdown to our funding agencies, and I'm happy to report that none of the funding agencies expressed any opposition to this. And again, this is the relationship the LAFCO staff has built over the years and really being proactive of providing services to our funding agencies. So the fact that we're able to ask for more revenue and the funding agencies were okay with it. Again, this kind of shows a testament of LAFCO's relationship with our local agencies. That being said, Madam Chair, staff is recommending that the commission adopt the draft budget by adopting the draft resolution and direct staff to distribute the proposed budget to the funding agencies, and also direct staff to hold another public meeting to adopt the final budget. And we are tentatively scheduled to be presenting that in May. So, Madam Chair, that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Is there anybody in the public that wants to speak on this matter? No? Oh, yes. Okay.
There is one hand raised. You've been
Good
asked to be
morning.
unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Miss Becky, we can hear you.
Excellent, thank you. Good morning, Commissioners and Director Serrano. My name is Becky Steinbrunner. I want to commend you always on the good work that you do. I think the level of analysis that your sphere and service review reports include are incredible. So thank you. I know that's a lot of work. And Francisco is a wonderful assistant, helping in all things. So I'm hearing an echo. Okay, so what I want to ask is the professional services that is a reduce of $2,000 to $38,000. I do not see which consultants are being retained. In the past, Don Jarvis was one and Perrette Harmon was one, and I'm wondering who those consultants are that are being retained for professional services. Thank you. Hello?
Madam Chair, no other requests.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Steinbrunner. So do we have any questions from the commission? I had to stop myself. I was going to say board. Yes.
One of the things in the budget that I noticed is the PERS side fund, and it's growing. And I believe the current rate in the past was 7.5%, and I believe reading it was 6.8 now is what we pay on that. And just for history on this, once upon a time we looked into seeing if somebody would fund that at a lower rate. And the city of Santa Cruz was the only taker at the time, but they would give us a better rate of return, but they wanted it paid off in 3 years, which kind of put us in the same thing. So that's one question. Do we have a plan to stop that from growing? And then the other is kind of to the professional services and stuff. Do you see any potential big litigations there? For a while, UCSC, we were litigating with them and had quite a lot of expense around that. Do you see anything in our near future for litigation issues?
Good question, Commissioner. So I'll start with the first question about CalPERS. So we have budgeted 113,000 for our pension liabilities. The minimum request from CalPERS for this upcoming fiscal year is around $75,000. These last couple of years, your staff has been given more than the minimum amount just to get that balance lower and lower. That way, there's a schedule in the actuarial report that kind of gives us an idea of if you pay X amount, this is when you'll reduce your balance. So we've been following that schedule to make sure that we can pay as much as we can to reduce that balance amount. So that's been a practice that we've been doing over the years. That's something that I think staff, we can add more context in our staff report about what we're doing. That way the commission is fully aware of, yes, staff is being cognizant about that balance and ways to reduce it as quickly as possible, but as long as we have the funding for it. So I think at the next final budget staff report, we'll have a better explanation of that process. When it comes to professional services, in your attachment 1 on page 2, it does give a breakdown of which consultants we're using and how much we've earmarked for each one. So for example, Brett Harmon, our water consultant, we've earmarked $12,000. For Don Jarvis, our fire consultant, we earmarked again $12,000. And then we also have another subcategory in the professional services that it's for any other use if needed, in case we have to hire another consultant to do a feasibility study like AP Train like we did last year. That's somewhere where we can pull that money. When it comes to litigation, this commission did adopt a reserve balance, 2 in particular. One is contingency, the other is litigation. And we have a minimum balance of 100,000 for each one. So in the event that we need to explore litigation or have to deal with the lawsuit, we do have an earmarked amount in our budget. So that's something that we are aware of. We do have a good working relationship with the university. Right now, there is an ongoing effort in the appeals process between the county and the city against the university. LAFCO's not part of that legal process, but we do have funds if needed.
So you don't see any abnormal need for any litigation funds?
Your staff has a great track record of being aware if litigation would ever come to be. And I feel pretty confident that they're, knock on wood, that I don't anticipate any litigations in the near future, but we're prepared if needed.
Yeah. The only thing I caution about those actuarial things is they're kind of a year behind. So it's hard to get your arms around what your liabilities and stuff really are.
Right.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I have a question concerning reserves. Are we using part of our existing reserve balance to help balance the budget? And if so, how long can we continue to use that vehicle?
Great question. So historically, Santa Cruz LAFCO has been using reserves to balance our budget. And what we've done is because we've frozen the allocation of amount these last 5-6 years, we've been drawing more of the reserves. And that was by design. because our reserves before the commission adopted the actual policy was a healthy amount. And that's something that we wanted to reduce. There is no magic number, but based on my review of local agencies around the state, including LAFCO's, we want to have at least 25% in reserves to cover any unexpected costs. So that's like 6 to 8 months of expenses. We were way above 25%. So now we're at the point where we're around 25, 30%. So I think that's a good number to have for this commission. We are going to be using, if this draft budget is approved, 295,000. Again, that's to cover our reserve amounts. We also have unrestricted amount, and that's the amount that we are really focusing on to balance this budget. This commission did adopt a policy saying that if we need to use our reserves to balance the budget, we can do that as well. So staff is using that policy to balance this proposed budget for this coming fiscal year.
Roger?
Yeah, just a couple things. I really look forward to a little more comprehensive treatment of the PERS problem. Basically, what is the present amount needed to pay the unfunded liability? And then what we outstand, the so-called side fund. And with our trajectory, is there a kind of a due date when we'll finish paying that off, or whatever?
Okay.
Another thing too is that it seems to me we're getting very low interest rate. And have you looked into the possibility of getting anything more than that, or are we constrained by county procedures?
So good question and point. So to your point about more information about CalPERS, I agree. And that information will be provided in our next staff report. About interest rate, while we are budgeting $1,500, we're getting around, on average, these last couple of years, around $10,000. But I don't really want to rely on that because it fluctuates so much. But to your point, our interest does come from the balance that we have in our account that's held by the county. I've seen LAFCOs, and I worked with LAFCOs in the past where they had additional funds like their reserves in a LAFE account. That's something that this commission could explore. But even though we're only budgeting $1,500, our rate of return in the county account is reasonable. But staff doesn't want to rely on that interest as our funding source because it does fluctuate. But that's something that if the commission wants to direct staff to do, we can explore the idea of can we get more bang for our buck, so to speak. So that's something that we can definitely look into.
Yeah.
If I can add to that, PERS does offer a couple of investment accounts. One that's anticipated rate of return, at least last year when I looked into it, was 4%, and they have another one that's 5%, which you can use to pay down the unfunded liability. But I, at the same time, looked into LEAF in the county because our fire district did the same thing, and there's a lot better rates of return than the county's, not much better than passbook savings. So just something that we might want to look into.
Sure.
Okay, anybody over on this end? Nope. Okay, so we're ready for a motion.
I'd like to move the draft up budget with the changes we've got.
Second.
Okay, the second, was that Ed?
Yeah.
Thanks, okay. So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. So we'll move to the next item.
Chair, unfortunately, we do have 2 district representatives on the commission. So as an alternate, I don't think unless our legal counsel can chime in, I don't think you can make the second motion.
Oh, sorry.
I'll remove my second. Defer.
Okay, Justin Cummings will fill in for that.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
So what was that? I just. wanted
So we
to
got a
understand.
motion from Jim Anderson and a second from Justin Cummings. Josh, can an alternate make a motion or a second?
If they're serving in place of a regular commissioner, yes. If not, no.
So we're clear on that. So we do have a motion and a second. We just need a all in favor from the commission.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We'll move on to other business. Do you have a presentation on this?
Yes, so the first one is about the special districts election results. So it is staff's understanding that this is the first time in Santa Cruz LAFCO history that we're going to have a runoff for not just the regular seat, but for the alternate seat. It was that competitive. We did have 3 candidates running for the regular seat and 5 candidates for the alternate seat. Based on the commission's policy, we did not get a majority, so there is language in the policies of the need for a runoff. So staff is recommending that the commission adopt the draft resolution, directing staff, well, first certifying the results and directing staff to conduct a runoff election for the regular and alternate seat. After this commission meeting, I will be sending out a letter to the 20 voting districts, letting them know about the runoff. I did give a heads up to the general managers and the fire chiefs about this, so they are scheduling this discussion at their April meetings, respectfully. So that is interesting. I see that as a kind of a win. It just shows that people are interested in being part of this commission just because of our success stories that we've been having these last couple of years. So while the candidates have to go through this again, I do like the fact that people are willing to be part of this LAFCO group. So, Madam Chair, that concludes my presentation. Again, staff is recommending that the commission adopt the draft resolution and directing us to begin the runoff election process.
Thank you. I guess you've succeeded in making this a sexy agency now, right?
That's one way of putting it.
I used to say sewers are sexy, but now LAFCO is too. See, everywhere I go. Do we have any comments?
I assume this will just be the top 2 people.
Oh, yes. Yes, the top 2 candidates from both categories. In this case, for the regular seat, it's going to be Jim Anderson and Lonnie Faulkner from Central Fire and Felton Fire. And for the alternate seat, it's going to be Ed Banks from PV Cemetery versus Lonnie Faulkner again for Central Fire. So those are the top 2 candidates for each category that are going to be part of the runoff election.
Okay, thank you.
Question. What happens if Lonnie Faulkner wins both?
Wait a minute.
So we're been discussing with legal counsel of like, what if there's a tie because there's 20 voting districts. So we're looking into the hypotheticals, and that's something that we'll cross that bridge if we need to. But I don't have the answer to that now. But we've been coordinating with legal counsel to make sure that we have answers if that does come to fruition, which I hope it doesn't.
Any other questions? Okay, this is a actionable item, is it?
Yes, there's a draft resolution that needs a motion in a second.
Okay. So do we have a motion?
I'll second.
Who made the motion was, oh,
So we got a motion from Commissioner Eduardo Montesino and a second from Roger Anderson.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Can we move on? So next is a report on LAFCO meeting conflict.
Yes, Madam Chair, the county has informed LAFCO that this chamber is going to have some renovations done in the upcoming months, specifically in August and September. Therefore, this room is not going to be available for us. So what your staff has done is we coordinated with the city of Watsonville to see if we can use their city council chambers, and they are available for the dates that we are scheduled to meet in August and September. So staff is recommending that the commission approve us relocating our next commission meetings in August and September to the city of Watsonville's council chambers. Madam Chair, that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
After today's traffic, we'll probably all be looking forward to that. Are there any questions?
Supervisor.
I think it might be worth following up with the CEO because I recently spoke with him and there was some talk about them delaying the construction until December.
Oh,
And
okay.
So you might want to just double check. I mean, either way, I mean, if we meet in Watsonville, that's great. But I'm just saying that it might not actually be coinciding with the construction.
Okay. Well, thank you for the update, Supervisor Cummings. So what staff would recommend is that the commission adopt the proposed recommendation with the condition that unless the construction does not occur in August and September, then we'll keep it here or something to that effect.
Well, don't confuse me because then I won't know where to go.
Well, I'll raise a question to the commission is, would you like to just stick with meeting in Watsonville for August and September, regardless of this room being available or not? And then that we can determine what happens.
I would welcome you because like I said, it took me an hour and 15 minutes to just get over here.
Then in that case, Madam Chair,
That would be the motion. Keep those.
we can just
two
stick
meetings
with
in
that
Watsonville.
motion.
I'll second that motion.
And we have a motion, the same motions, I guess, or yeah, okay.
So we got a motion from Eduardo Montesino and second from Jim Anderson to relocate LAFCO's August and September meetings to Watsonville City Council chambers.
Okay, all in,
I
oh,
was gonna say it might not be necessary, but I don't think we opened it up for public comment in case.
oh, yeah. Is there public comment?
There's no request at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, we do have a hand
Sorry.
raised.
Although what Justin said makes me believe that maybe the conflict is going to be in January. So, let's just keep the motion as it is and see if it passes. And then we'll worry about the future when it comes.
Yeah,
Right.
staff will definitely keep the commission aware of the situation. We do have a public member requesting to speak on this item. So Miss Becky, you've been asked to be unmuted.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello? Thank you. This is Becky Steinbrunner. I support having meetings actually regularly in Watsonville. Not all the time, but more often than not. So I'm happy to hear that in August and September, the LAFCO meetings will be in Watsonville. And it's interesting news to me to hear about the construction going on in the Board of Supervisor chambers. I'm aware of what the board passed. So, and thank you, Commissioner Cummings, for updating us on the status of that construction. Your commission therefore may need to look at alternate places in December and January, but there is the community room in the basement that also is used for different commission and board meetings that could be a possibility if you want to stay at 701 Ocean. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, there's no other requests from the public.
Okay, so now we'll get back to the motion and second that's already standing, right?
Mhm.
Okay,
Correct.
all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none opposed, we will move on. And I meant to say aye. The CSA 48 update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excuse me. I have a couple updates regarding CSA 48. First is, let me give you the story of how we got here. As the commission may recall, back in 2021, the commission conducted a countywide fire report that analyzed our existing fire districts, including CSA 48. That led to the hiring of AP Triton to do a feasibility study on the sphere boundaries of those funding agencies and how that would affect CSA 48. That was presented to the commission and adopted back in 2023. One of the recommendations in that report was to explore the idea of converting CSA 48 from a dependent special district that's operated by the county through a contract with CAL FIRE and reorganizing it into an independent fire district, having its own board, its own staff, its own budget. So that effort has been ongoing. Your staff has been working with county and CAL FIRE. We formed a stakeholder group. We meet on a monthly basis. We are currently working on a transition plan / study to see if this could work. How can we transfer CSA 48 from a dependent to an independent fire district? I will say that things are going well. We've gotten some fiscal information from CAL FIRE, and it seems that on surface, it can work financially. Now we're looking at the governance structure. Is it going to be a 5-member board, a 7-member board? Is it going to be at large? Is it going to be voter based? So all these other specifics on how to have an effective district is currently being analyzed. We're hoping to present that study, that transition plan to this commission and to the Board of Supervisors in August. And hypothetically, let's say that the plan makes sense and the county supports this idea, then maybe have the initiation to start the reorganization effort sometime in September or October. Again, these are preliminary dates, but that's something that your staff continues to work on, and that's a goal of ours to present something context to the commission in August. So that's the CSA 48 reorganization. A new development is the Pajaro Valley Fire Protection District is really looking into dissolving themselves, and they identified the county CSA 48 as a successor agency. They were initially planning on adopting a resolution to initiate that process at their last meeting in March. They delayed action to host a community workshop. That workshop is scheduled for April 15th, which is in a week or two. Your staff has been invited to be a guest speaker, and I address any concerns or questions that the community may have. My understanding is after this community workshop, based on the information and comments from the audio from the residents, it's my understanding that at that point, at their next board meeting, the PV Fire will consider adopting a resolution to initiate this reorganization that would essentially dissolve that fire district and annex that area, PV Fire area, into CSA 48. So we have this PV Fire reorganization running parallel with the CSA 48 conversion into an independent district running at the same time. And that's why it's important to have this stakeholder group with the county and CAL FIRE and LAFCO to make sure that we have all our ducks in a row when we analyze both these efforts. So there's a lot going on, but your staff is working closely with the affected agencies to see if we can run these at the same time. At our next update to this commission, I will have a tentative schedule for each one. That way you can kind of see the next steps and the milestones and projected dates. But for now, I wanted to provide you a verbal update on the ongoing efforts involving CSA 48 and South County when it comes to fire protection. Madam Chair, this is an informational item. No commission action is required, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions from members of the public?
Yes, ma'am. We do have one request from Ms. Becky Steinbrenner, so we're going to ask her to unmute herself.
Good morning again. This is Becky Steinbrenner. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. I attended the meeting of the Pajaro Valley Fire District Board to speak on a different item, and I was very surprised to look on their agenda that morning and find that this resolution, the resolution to dissolve, was there. I could not access any of their staff documents and phoned the fire station, and indeed the links were all broken. So that was part of why they delayed signing the resolution right there that night. But also, Mr. Don Jarvis was in attendance at that meeting and cautioned them that this was premature. He and I both spoke to the fact that there had been no public outreach about it, and we both wondered what the rush was. Mr. Jarvis was surprised that he had not been brought into the fold on that action, because as your commission knows, he is the consultant on fire consolidation issues. Mr. Michael Beaton was in the audience, and but did not speak. Mr. Beaton is the Director of General Services that oversees County Fire Department. So it was a little curious, and I'm very glad to hear that they are scheduling a town hall meeting. That will make for a much smoother process, as you can guess. But I'm wondering if Director Serrano was surprised by this quick action by Pajaro Valley Fire District Board to put this resolution to dissolve on their board agenda for March. As Mr. Jarvis pointed out, there was nothing included in the resolution about the taxation that comes along with CSA 48 and the CSA 48 2020 tax. There are two taxes. And I just am very curious about why that happened at the board of Pajaro Valley Fire District. And again, I'm very glad to learn of the April 15th Town Hall workshop. I hope that it is well noticed. Thank you for the update, and I'll look forward to hearing more about the process in August at the Board of Supervisors meeting, I guess, and hopefully before then at the LAFCO meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's no other requests to address the commission on this item. I do have a comment if you want me to respond.
Should I close the public comment part?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm closing the public comment and moving to our
Commission discussion.
commission discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just, the question about, this was rushed. This was a quick effort. I don't agree with that. And in fact, this commission may recall back in 2022, PV Fire submitted an application to LAFCO to do the exact same thing, dissolve themselves and annex themselves into CSA 48. And the reason being is they attempted to increase the benefit assessments. That failed, but their costs to operate the system and have 3 people on duty 24/7, they didn't have the money for it. So they initiated that application. That application was since terminated, and one of the primary reasons is they were able to save money by reducing the level of service. So now they currently have 2 people on duty, but that is a temporary solution. They want to revert back to a 3-person system, and in order to do that, they want to again dissolve themselves and be annexed into CSA 48. And the question is, since their benefit assessment efforts failed, and I believe it failed twice, CSA 48 has 2 benefit assessments. And under LAFCO law, if an area gets annexed and there's existing benefit assessments, that can be extended to the annexation area. So that's something that we want to inform the residents about, that if you do get dissolved and be annexed into CSA 48, you'll be subject to those benefit assessments, just like any other resident in CSA 48. So that's something that needs to be discussed and be transparent. But this is not a rushed effort. This has been discussed with the county, CAL FIRE, and LAFCO for a couple of years now. But I think the district is doing the right approach of holding a community workshop to answer questions, be transparent. If they do move forward this reorganization, it's going to be at least a year. So you've seen staff work diligently on these efforts, and your staff is all about transparency, and we'll continue that effort. So I just wanted to provide that context to the commission.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? John?
Mr. Serrano, could you remind me of the service area for PV Fire?
Good question. So it is a large area, one of our largest fire districts. They are surrounding the city of Watsonville, which has its own fire department. It goes up to Corralitos and down to the Monterey, Santa Cruz County border. And it also goes west all the way to Pajaro Dunes, which is CSA 4. That little community has its own contract, it's its own entity. CSA 4 and CSA 48 are separate, but again, it goes from the coast all the way to the Aromas area, down south to the Santa Cruz Monterey boundary, and all the way up to Corlitos.
And do they have an agreement with CAL FIRE, or are they covering that with two people?
Another great question. So similar to CSA 48, which contracts with CAL FIRE, PB Fire also contracts with CAL FIRE to provide employment and staffing and their fire chief. So that's why this could work, because CAL FIRE is a service provider for both entities. So they see economies of scale and some potential cost savings with that potential merger.
Yes. Sorry, lost my voice.
Okay. To my understanding, the last measure failed because of the structure of the request from the landowners, and it was disproportionate to large landowners that might have one home and stuff, and that whoever was proposing this, I guess Pajaro Valley Fire, realized it too late in the game to change that. And that was one of the big, because I've listened into a couple of their meetings, and that was one of the issues with that.
Yeah, so my understanding is, and we do have our fire consultant, Don Jarvis, who's also a constituent of PB Fire. So he's following this very closely. But my understanding is you're right. So the proposed benefit assessment was based on the benefit that each parcel would receive. And so the larger properties had a weighted vote. And I think my understanding is there could have been a stronger effort to inform the residents about the benefit assessment. But because there was large parcel owners that had a weighted vote, and those were the ones that were opposed to this increase in their costs, that's one of the reasons why it failed. Just the lack of engagement with the residents and the costs associated to those large parcel owners.
Okay. Then my second question is there's some concern that's been risen among the fire districts that currently exist, and how CSA 48 and making them one big special district might impact them.
Yeah, so good question. LAFCO so CSA 48 provides fire protection to areas that are not in a fire district. So all the unincorporated area that's not in the existing 10 fire districts. So it's the rural area. And PB Fire is not the only struggling fire district. And if this CSA 48 were to be converted into an independent fire district, I think that would be a strategic move, in the sense that if there's another struggling fire district in the future, that new fire district will be capable of taking over the service responsibility of that struggling fire district. Because again, CSA 48 is a funding mechanism for the county. They contract with CAL FIRE. And so the question is, do they have the capacity to assume more responsibility? And that's one of the questions we're having with the county and CAL FIRE about PB Fire. Do they have the capacity to make it work? Fortunately, that we just discussed earlier, is CAL FIRE provides services to both districts. So I think that could work. But what about Felton Fire or any of the other Valley fire districts? Not to put Felton on the spot, but again, that's something that if in the event there's a struggling fire district in the future and we have this new fire district, I think they're more capable of assuming more responsibility in the future. So I don't see that as a threat to the existing fire district. It's more, in LAFCO's point of view, another opportunity for them to explore if needed.
So it's not, the way it's designed and being discussed currently, it's not intended to impact any of the existing special fire districts.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Roger Anderson.
Yeah, a quick thing, maybe it's not quick, but I seem to recall that Triton was hired basically for this very issue. And then the dissolution went away, and now it's back again. And I'm curious about how much of the Triton report still is relevant for the resume situation.
Good question, Commissioner Roger Anderson. So yes, AP Triton was hired back in 2022 to analyze the existing sphere boundaries for the fire districts, because most of the fire districts in our county have a sphere that goes beyond their service area. So the question was, all right, these sphere boundaries have been around for decades and we haven't seen any annexations. So why is that? And to LAFCO's point of view, it appeared that these fire districts were willing to annex, but they were hearing from the county that there's no money to transfer over. If you can assume the responsibilities, but there's no money for us to offset those expenses. And so we hired AP trying to see, okay, so is there any money there? So we were able to determine the potential revenue in those sphere boundaries. And on the flip side, see how does that negatively affect CSA 48? Because as we mentioned, it's a funding mechanism. So if they lose territory, they're also losing that potential revenue. And as part of that study, we did receive an application from PV Fire to reorganize and dissolve themselves. So as part of that study, we asked AP Triton, can you also analyze this application and see if can it work? And AP Triton at that time identified that there was concerns about the potential reorganization. And I think that was another reason why that application eventually was terminated, because of those issues. I think this time around, we know those concerns, and we may be able to address those issues. So I think that's something that we're going to look into, using that AP Triton analysis this time around, if PV Fire does submit an application to reorganize themselves.
I have one
Jim
more question that
Anderson.
was sparked by this. So it's also my understanding that CSA 48 has been underfunded for the last few years. And so do you know how they make up the shortfall? Like, we're using reserves, so do they go into the general fund for that?
I would defer to the county or Cal Fire. I don't think they're underfunded. I think they have a healthy reserve amount, and they were able to pass 2 benefit assessments, and they have recently increased the amount of one of the benefit assessments. But again, I can't speak on behalf of if they're underfunded. I don't feel that's the case.
Okay, well, I was part of the ad hoc committee that investigated the Central Fire in La Silva Beach, our Aptos fire consolidation, and we had brought at the Cal Fire chief into the early discussions, and thinking that maybe the Aptos area would want to migrate out into the Freedom area and stuff. And after that first meeting, I remember that Ian Larkin, the chief, said that they weren't really interested in it, because if they gave up some of that property, that's the high income area for the CSA 48 support. So he had concerns that it would really impact the operation of CSA 48. So they kind of withdrew out of the conversation at the time. So.
Okay. Are there any other questions? This is an informational item only, so we can move on to the next item, which is written correspondence.
Madam Chair, we did receive one letter from LAFCO, and this is their effort to improve their engagement with the member agencies. I did want to inform the commission that LAFCO did host their annual retreat in March. Your staff participating in those discussions. It was a 2-day event. It was difficult, but I think they're moving in the right direction. They are going to, based on those conversations and recommendations at that retreat, they're going to discuss that and consider implementation at their next board meeting, which is this Friday. Your staff will be attending that one, not in person. It's a hybrid meeting, so we'll be joining virtually. But this letter kind of identifies their efforts to right the wrongs with the member LAFCOs, and this is going to be a year. It's going to be a multi-year process. We are scheduled to lose 4 LAFCOs from the southern region. They're planning on leaving on June 30th. So one of the efforts is, how do we get them back, so that way we can be a united organization. So that's something that we're going to continue working on. Madam Chair, this is an informational item. No commission action is required, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Did those 4 agencies attend the retreat?
There were at least one representative from the southern region that was 2. So yes, they were represented at this retreat, and their intent is to consider coming back if their issues are addressed. And so that's what we're working on. And it's not just to appease the southern region, because their issues are concerns that other LAFCOs around the state have. So it's not like CalLAFCO's doing everything it can to just appease these 4 LAFCOs. But they are open to coming back if we're able to address their concerns.
So that, any other questions? We can move on to the next item. Press articles.
Madam Chair, there's no staff presentation. These are just articles that we find interesting for the commission, but no action is required. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions, commissioners' business. Do any commissioners have something to comment briefly on?
Madam Chair, I do have 2 commission business
Are
items
you
that
going to be brief?
I'm going to be super brief. One is earlier this year in January, the city selection committee appointed Joe Clark from the city of Capitola to be on this commission. And Alan Timms from Scotts Valley stepped down. Unfortunately, Commissioner Clark has not attended 3 consecutive meetings, so February, March, and today's. Under the commission's policy, we do have language that say if there's 3 consecutive meetings, the chair through the executive officer, we are required to inform the authorizing entity, the city selection committee, about the absences and see the need for a replacement. We've made attempts to coordinate with Commissioner Clark, and I think it's not fitting with his schedule. So we're going to see if we can get someone else from the city of Capitola. So I just wanted to bring that to the commission's attention. The second is, it's my understanding that some of the commissioners have not seen the LAFCO meetings on their Outlook calendars. So what I'm going to do is after this meeting, I'm going to resend it to make sure that it's on your calendar so that way you'll know when our next commission meetings will occur. So I apologize for that issue. But Madam Chair, that's all the updates I have for you, and no actions required.
Okay, thank you. Yes, just.
I do believe that the city select committee is going to be having a special meeting on April 6th. So you may want to bring it to their attention beforehand if the item that you just discussed around Commissioner Clark should be discussed by that body.
Yes, and that's one of the reasons why I also wanted to bring it to the attention, because of their upcoming city selection committee meeting. So I want to be able to put that on their agenda.
Okay.
So thank you.
Great. Roger Anderson.
Yeah, is there any basically checking whether somebody can make the meetings when they are appointed? I mean, somebody has a conflict, you would think they would know about it. So some time they have.
We always coordinate with the commissioners about their attendance, so their upcoming attendance, and under our efforts. We've been in coordination with Commissioner Clark. He did try to have someone else take his place, but you can't just transfer over that appointment. You have to go through the city selection process. So I think we're on the same page that maybe someone else from the city of Capitola could be on the LAFCO commission. So that's something that we're going to coordinate with staff. But yes, we attempted to see his availability, and unfortunately, it hasn't been working.
Anything else? Okay, now we can move to adjournment. Like to hit something.
Thank you, Commissioner Lather.